Hello everyone, I'm here with another review. I was thinking about what review to make, and people usually like the high stakes matches. So I was thinking about doing review of finals of World Championship 2016 between Brian Brown Duin and Marcio Carvalho. And when I was watching the game, I was reviewing. I kind of realized that I don't really know what's going on. It was just like too complex for me. So I decided to message Brian if he would maybe help me out, and he he agreed. So how it's going, Brian?
Good. Ready to talk about a game that's probably too complex for me at this point to remember what's going on either. So.
Before we get to the actual match, let's talk about the deck list a little bit so that people know what we're talking about. So it's like the Age of Company. It was dominating standard. The difference is that you actually didn't play the what was called Band Company itself, but you were playing Band Humans, right?
Right. Yeah, it was a more aggressive version of Bant Company that was more about building a bigger board rather than controlling the board.
Yeah, the main difference is that all of your creatures are humans, and you're not playing like a spell queller, and instead you're playing like Talia's Lieutenant and stuff. Did you actually think you had a good matchup against the regular Company deck, or what was going on with that? Do you remember?
So I think the matchup between Bant Company and regular Company was like really close to 50-50. It really just depended a lot on the list, the style of play. For example, I played against Seth Manfield the night before the top four. Just in testing, he was playing a Bant Company deck that was similar to the ones in the top four, and I was playing Bant Humans, and he beat me like 80% of the time. So I was like, I was feeling really bad because he was playing the Bant Company deck in a way that I just had never really seen people play the deck before. And if he was playing, and I felt like if my opponent played the deck like that, I wasn't going to win. But I actually had some pretty good draws in a lot of the top four matches, so I was able to just kind of slide through. But
did he just like play differently, or was his deck like different so that it just had a better matchup against you?
He was playing exactly Shota's list from the top four.
Oh.
The way he was playing it was he would just never attack me. Just never. Like he would take the most defensive line in every situation and just eventually grind me out.
I see. Yeah, actually during sorry.
I was gonna say, like, even in spots where it looked like you had a free attack, sometimes like with Reflector Mage and some other and Dramoka's command, like that free attack can turn into your opponent actually gets to make an attack on the next turn.
I see. Yeah, actually remember that I played this Band Humans as well, and I kind of thought that game one I had advantage because I can just like snowball a little bit better, but post board, when people had access to like Tragic Arrogance and stuff like that, the actual Band Company was like slightly more powerful, I felt like. So overall I felt it was kind of 50-50, but I don't really know.
Yeah, Tragic Arrogance was kind of like the main focus of all the post board games, was being able to set up an Arrogance to beat your opponent, because the non-symmetrical nature of it, where you got to make all the choices, just made it so powerful.
Just so people know, let's just look at Marcio's deck list a little bit. Do you remember how you boarded? Because we're gonna watch a post board game.
I don't remember exactly how I boarded. No, I think, yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I just wanted to ask. Maybe you remember.
I mean, I know for a fact that I brought in Tragic Arrogance, and I'm pretty sure I brought in Nissa's. And I want to say that I probably cut. I would guess that I cut Knight of the White Orchid when I was on the play, because I was card that was better on the draw, and I want to say that, I mean, maybe it was like the Thalia or Duskwatch Recruit or something like that. Those would have been the cards that I would have pegged as something that I might have trimmed on.
Sure. So let's start the game. It's a very long game. Maybe it will take like too long. We don't necessarily need to cover all of it, but I just think that there's like many interesting spots. So let's just go ahead into the game, I guess.
Okay.
You can see it fine, right?
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Yeah, like so turn one, you already had like a decision what land to play. You didn't actually play Evolving Wilds. Was that maybe because you just wanted to search for blue and like you wouldn't be able to use the white one on turn 2, or?
I believe it's because I was trying to play a Knight of the White Orchid on turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I needed to do was have 2 white lands in play before my third turn, so that on the third turn I could play the Knight before I played my land drop. And that would allow me to search for a land and then also play a land for turn.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't wanna. Oh, I see. Okay.
So if I search for a blue land early, I lose
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ability
yeah,
to do
yeah.
that.
I understand. You cannot search for a blue mana with the Knight of White Orchid. There is no like blue-white land that you
There
can.
was Prairie Stream, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that I could search for. And I would guess that's probably what I go and get. I don't remember exactly. We'll see.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is that even if you started with Evolving Wilds, you could have like searched for planes, and you would still be able to have a blue mana with the Knight, right?
Right. I could do that. The downside there is like if Marcio misses his third land drop or something, I'm locked out of blue.
So yeah, Marcio's play were kinda, he didn't really have any options until this point, but yeah. So as you're saying, now you can go play the Knight. How did it feel to play in the finals of Worlds?
It was awesome. Like I don't know. I was kind of more hyped for it than anything else, just because I'd come into this tournament like not with any expectations of performing well. So like every round that I advanced, I was just like, this is better than I thought I was going to do.
Wow, you have 3 Reflector Mages. Wow. So yeah, Marcio.
Yeah, I had a lot of reflector.
Yeah.
I was saying I had a lot of reflector mages, but I didn't really have any pressure to go with them, so you lose a little bit of their power when you're just, playing them to play them.
But you're like usually trying to be more like the beat down deck even in the post war games, or was that just like not really possible and you just like needed to win the grindy game? How did it usually play out?
Pretty much that. Like it was really hard to be the beatdown in a post board game. The plan was mostly to just build a giant Thalia's Lieutenant a lot of times, and then Tragic Arrogance, and use that to kill your opponent.
But your opponent also has a Tragic Arrogance, right? So like that like seems kind of hard to accomplish to just like kill them with lieutenants.
Yep.
So Marcio chose to play this and kill this. Was there like any way for him to maybe like attack, because he could have like attacked with the creatures? I guess that wouldn't really work out. Yeah, never mind.
No, there was no way. He had to make Sylvan Advocate was the only creature big enough to fight there. I'm not sure I agree with the decision to even use a Dromoka's command there, because it's like one of the most powerful cards in the matchup. Using it to not even be able to then attack, I don't know. That didn't seem super effective to me.
Yeah, he had another one in his hand, and maybe he was afraid that if he just like passes, then you might have a command of your own, or he just doesn't use his mana or something. I'm not sure. I agree with you that it like seemed kind of weak, but I don't know. He didn't really have other options. I don't know. He would maybe just like not use it at all. Maybe that was better. I don't know.
Yeah, having 2 commands is really powerful, because like you can even engineer a situation where you play a command to bait an opposing command, and then re-up on their command with your second command, and sometimes you can like massively blow them out.
Yeah, also if he had a command up, that would mean that his like recruiter survives kinda for sure, and he's flooding out, so he really needs that recruiter to work. So that was maybe another reason to keep the command, but I don't know. Also, as you're saying, like the damage doesn't really matter, so maybe he just could have been more patient, but. Oh, he drew a Band Company. That's a pretty good card, I heard.
Not bad. I mean, they did name the deck after it, so
So how did it actually like work out with trimming the creatures? Because the deck like needs to play, many creatures just so the company works, but a lot of the time, post board you kind of need to trim some of them to make space for like more Dromoka commands or tragic arrogance. How did that work out?
it's kind of a tight line there between that, because you don't want to, yeah, like what you said, you don't want to leave yourself where your companies suck, but your companies are pretty much always going to get a little bit worse after sideboard. I think with a Bant Humans deck, though, we had enough creatures in our main deck to where it actually wasn't, you were like going down on your creature count post board, but you still had enough to hit most of the time on company.
Mm-hmm. So now when you're sitting there, you just kind of assume that he has the company. I guess he can have Archangel Avacyn as well, but
Yep.
So you go Reflector. It's actually kind of sad, right? Like if you would just like see your hand, you would assume that having 3 reflectors, it's not, the problem with it is that you cannot really attack into potential company anyway because it's just very dangerous, and when you're not attacking, Reflector Mage just kind of becomes a 3-mana 2/3. So
Yeah, one of the values of having the Reflector Mages like this is their body is actually more relevant for my deck than Marcio's. In that if I do draw Thalia's Lieutenant, suddenly I actually have like a really nice board that I can attack with.
did you play test the version with like Eldrazi Displacer as well? Do you know what I mean?
I do. I don't remember if we tested that or not.
Unfortunately, I cannot really see what Marcio saw in this company. Okay, he found a Tracker and Reflector Mage. That's kind of as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's basically like he can mage one of my mages. That's going to pretty much nullify any offensive force that I had, and then Tracker's just a card that can take over this kind of a game.
So the reason why you're thinking is that you kind of want to maybe show him that you might still have a Dromokas command, but if you did, you would kill that Tracker for sure, right? Oh, wait, what happened?
So he had played Company.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see.
To
Okay.
my Reflector Mage.
Yeah.
And I guess he chose for me to pick up a Knight of the White Orchid instead of a Mage.
This game, like right now, it seems like like a normal game, but it's gonna get crazy. I don't know if you remember what game are we reviewing here, but the board state just gets kind of crazy at a certain point.
Yeah, this does just look like kind of a normal game of Magic. Like Marcio's a little bit ahead right here, but I agree with you. It's yeah, stuff's about to go down.
Okay, so was Advocate like actively good post board? It just kind of seems that it doesn't really do that much, but I guess it's still good enough. Can really.
I found Advocate to be not bad, just as a body that could soak up an attack, even through like a Thalia's Lieutenant, and also one that could attack back, which was sometimes important too, without like just the vigilance allowing it to attack back without throwing away defensive capabilities.
Oh yeah, so like Marcio is pointing out that he bounced it, but actually, Marcio had the turn after that, so you can play the knight. I think at some point there is a misunderstanding about like bouncing something with Reflector Mage, and We will get to that, I guess. We will get to that.
Yeah, so watching this video now, I immediately thought, oh, I couldn't have made that play, but then I realized it was a company at the end of my turn, and then Marcio had a full turn cycle, or a full turn, so now it actually is legal to be played again.
So you have a planes reflector in company, and Marcio actually decided to not play his Avacyn. What do you think about that? Let's stop the video. So he could have just like played Avacyn there.
Yeah.
Did he not because of like your company, or like what do you think is the reason that he didn't?
If I had to guess, I would guess that his intention was to save Avacyn to use for a turn where he could make an attack, so that the indestructible is a relevant part of it there. But not 100% sure on that.
Sure. Yeah, I guess this game kind of seems that it's gonna go for a while, so the Avacyn's gonna be busted at some point. But at the same time, he would use 5 mana and start dealing 4 a turn. Like, I'm not sure. I didn't play the matchup enough to really know. And I guess with like this tracker and Nissa untapping the if you have another like command or something, he can protect these creatures with Avacyn. So I guess it makes sense. So you really need to hit with his company.
Yeah, I'm currently on the bad end of a tireless tracker, and that's about as good of a hit as you could ask for.
Do you maybe think that hitting 2 lieutenants would be better, or do you think the tracker is better here?
Well, based on him having Avacyn in hand, the tracker I would say is better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if 2 lieutenants would be enough to close the game out.
Yeah, probably tracker seems better here. Yeah, so I would like to talk about like some the game seems pretty complicated, but I think so far there haven't been like that many interesting decisions because you both kind of can't attack and you're just like trying to maximize the value of your cards. The most interesting turn so far was the one with command, I guess. Like if Marcio had 2 commands here, that would be kind of a lot better than it is.
Yeah, and I think if he had double command, him flashing an Avacyn also looks significantly more appealing there, because any play that I can make, with him having 2 commands and an active Avacyn in play gets a lot worse. Outside of Reflector Mage, basically.
He already played 2 of them, I think. Marcio also decided to not use his second command to kill your tracker because he wants to keep up Avacyn, but he lets you draw additional card. But I guess keeping the Avacyn up is more important. What do you think about that? Because if he uses the command, he can still correct the clue. He prevents you from drawing. I guess having the Avacyn is really important against like another lieutenant, because then you can actually like have a very scary attack. So it's probably just better to keep the Avacyn, but it's something that I just wanted to point out. Would you agree with that, or?
I think I would have killed the tracker. Like.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think that at this point in time, Marcio's at 18 life, has 5 creatures in play. I could theoretically have a massive, like, if I hit another company and hit another lieutenant plus a reflector mage or some other things, like, yeah, it could be very bad for him. But if I just have a normal hand or something, the game's going to come down to card advantage, and he's pretty far ahead on card advantage if he has Nissa tracker to my nothing. But if we both have trackers, these decks are so powerful that, I could easily draw out of being a little bit behind if I'm drawing 2 cards a turn.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. That's why I kind of pointed it out. Don't you maybe think that if you had another lieutenant, which you could easily had, then you might have some attacks that to like attack this Nissa, and then he either loses the Nissa or has to like throw creatures away, and maybe that outcome isn't worth the extra card from tracker.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. One of the things that often happens though is like if I make an attack at Nissa, he probably just is like, well, I'm gonna bin this Nissa because it's not worth saving, and I get to make some nice like blocks, double blocks here, and just trade up a number of creatures, and end up not really being behind from the whole thing.
Yeah, so potentially Marcio like didn't use his first command right, and then he didn't kill a tracker here. So oh, you have a dummy. I love that card. Actually,
Yeah, I drew that off of. I'm pretty sure I drew that off the clue that I sacked. That was a big game-changing draw right there. That Tamio.
Well, if you weren't sure whether he should have killed a tracker or not, well, now we know. So yeah. When I played the deck, like at the beginning, I often thought I can keep the tracker alive for like 1 turn or 2 turns, like the clue. It takes a lot of time. It's not really that important right now. But as you're saying, eventually I learned like you just kill a tracker when you can, immediately. It gets out of hand.
Remember when it was like a couple of creatures with no abilities in play a few turns ago? Now it's like 2 planeswalkers, like Archangel Avacyn counters on all these creatures, like.
Yeah, so you basically just pump the Tamio, but you can't attack, right? That's all that happened. Now Marcio is thinking whether he should play the Avacyn. Okay, so he plays it to be able to kill Tamio. Because he still has the Dromokas command, so he can actually put a counter on it and kill the Tamio if he wants to.
Yep.
The problem is that now it's kind of difficult for him to kill the tracker.
Well, Dromoka's command can kill the tracker. Or, I mean, if I don't have a command of my own, basically. He can destroy me if I don't have Dromoka's command as one of my 2 cards.
If he wants to kill it, like, how does he? Oh, he has the Sylvan Advocate. That's why. Yeah, sure. I was trying to say that none of Marcio's creatures are big enough to fight, but I forgot about the Advocate.
There's also the 4/4 that Nissa created as well.
But that's only a 5/5 if it fights, right? The tracker has 2 counters on it already.
So the tracker is a 5/4. So the 4/4 would fight it.
Yeah, I know, but the 4/4 would die as well, which would flip the Avacyn, which maybe Marcio doesn't want.
It's possible, yeah. I think flipping Avacyn here wouldn't even be that bad for Marcio. I mean, he would kill most of my creatures. I mean, granted here, if he draws another land to be able to get his trackers to 5/4s, being able to flip Avacyn is actually kind of a good thing.
By the way, what do you? Were you about to say something? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say like he would kill 3 of my creatures and he would only lose like 2 of his.
Another interesting thing here is that he actually played the second tracker before cracking the clue just to be able to put additional counter on it. Do you think that's worth it? Because if he cracks the clue first, then maybe he like draws into like different card that he wants to play, like maybe Company, or if he doesn't draw land, it kind of shuts down the option of flipping Avacyn, because then you like kill a second tracker. You don't really want to do that. What do you think about that?
I think it was the right play because he also plus the Nissa in there, and if the Nissa hits a land, it just goes. I'm pretty sure Nissa just puts the land into play if it hits.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So like putting the tracker out first before plussing the Nissa, that way if he hits the land, he gets an extra clue out of it.
So he didn't hit the land so far. I guess killing the Tamiyo isn't really a priority. Like you can kinda, like, it doesn't really matter whether you kill it in 2 attacks or 1, it's not really doing that much.
To some extent, I mean, it allows me to draw 2 cards if I choose to, effectively.
Well, the creatures need to deal damage to an opponent, right?
It's just combat damage.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Wow, that's way better.
Yeah, it's a strong card.
I
One
even
of the differences in our, so I played the same list as Brad Nelson, and the difference, we only had 1 card difference on our list, and I played a second Tamiyo, and he played a second Duskwatch. So I like to think that this was the second Tamiyo that I drew, because it played a pretty important role in this game.
By the way, did Marcio forgot to use his Nisa? I think so.
No, he did. He plussed it. He hit like I think a Duskwatch Recruiter off of it or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you drew a company. You know, the tracker is kind of snowballing. Like now Marcio didn't even kill it the second time, and you're like drawing these extra cards that, you know, have huge impact on this game that you wouldn't necessarily had if that tracker wasn't there. It's kind of crazy that a small decision like that snowballs so badly.
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty bad company for me, in that it was 2 Dromoka's commands and a Tragic Arrogance that I just had to ship to the bottom of my deck, and I only hit 1 creature off of it. But still, even at this point in the game, I would pay 4 mana for a Tireless Tracker. I would have paid 6 mana for a Tireless Tracker. Like,
what's the maximum amount you would pay there? The amount of your lands?
Probably, yeah. I probably would have paid it all for a tracker.
Yeah, that card was just so good. Like, I don't know. It was probably too strong for standard, maybe. I don't know. That card was just, I don't know. I hated it. So you have the third Reflector. And now it kind of seems that you can maybe start attacking. Especially with that Tamiyo.
Yeah, I think I'm at a point now where I can plus Tamiyo on one of my creatures that I don't care if I lose, that's big enough to make an attack, and one of Marcio's creatures that I would prefer that he doesn't block with, effectively. And that way, if he chooses to block with a creature that would normally be his best block, I get to at least draw a card out of it.
Oh, that's actually smart. You can target your opponent's creatures. Yeah, Tamiyo has a I don't know. I just like when the card was printed, I just assumed that it's gonna be an standard all star, but because of its mana cost, it's very difficult to cast, and it's also, not a creature, so you cannot really hit it with company. So it like didn't see as much play, but it is a very powerful card. Interesting. Why did you decide to attack with the tracker? All of the other creatures would just basically jump attack, right? So that's the only creature that can attack. Yeah.
That's the only creature that's big enough to attack.
It's interesting that like Marcio is stuck with his like Dromoka's command the entire game, and he just like wasn't really able to use it. By the way, what I was describing last turn actually ended up happening. Like he decided to play the tracker to put a additional counter on it, but then he didn't draw the land, and he drew company, and now he's just like stuck with this free mana. Like maybe it was better to just like draw first, and obviously in hindsight I know he drew the company, so I'm biased, but maybe that chance of drawing that, or like maybe Tragic Arrogance or like something else, was worth the fact that you lose one counter on a tracker, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me it seems clear to me that I would have chosen to draw. I would have chosen to play the tracker first in his spot, but it did seem like it worked out poorly for him. Having done that.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying it was a mistake necessarily, but it was just like an interesting point that I wanted to mention. So
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that it was correct for me to trade my tracker there. I did get to draw a card off of it, but it's possible that that was not the right play for
Yeah,
me.
I didn't really like it that much, just because the tracker is just gonna grow and draw even more cards. I don't know. Maybe at that point you like thought that he might not make that double block because of Dromoka's command or something, but I don't know. It seemed a little bit weak. I'm kind of losing track of what's happening. That's actually like at first I was just thinking that I'm gonna do this as like a random video on my own, but basically at this point I kind of realized that I just wouldn't really know what's going on. So I just I needed a help of the. I needed your expertise because you were actually in the match, so you have a better idea on what was going on.
Yeah, so this attack I don't think is great.
Mm-hmm. It seems good, right? Because he has like so many clues that it just seems that these trackers would be hard to block, but maybe it will not really work out that well for him. Were you about to say something about that?
Yeah, and I also think that this might have been. I wonder if this was the spot where he went to flush in the Avacyn and couldn't. I can't remember. There was a point where he tried to play Avacyn but could not. So if he thinks he has Avacyn up, this is actually a fine attack because indestructible. Like.
Yeah, I think you're right. He tries to play the Avacyn, and the judges are like, whoa! It got Reflector Maged. So that works out pretty well. Bad for him. Do you like me? You don't think he like was trying to cheat here, right? Like obviously the judges are gonna spot that.
I don't think so. I mean, who knows? But I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't.
Because I'm pretty sure that I didn't even remember that he also couldn't play the Avacyn. I think it was just the judge that found it. Like.
Yeah, like I just wanted to point it out, like because Marcio was suspended before. Anytime he like something like this happened, everyone is like he's a cheater. But you have to realize like there are like 5 judges watching this, so they're obviously gonna spot that, and if they do, you're just gonna like lose these trackers, obviously, and everyone's gonna think you're a cheater. So obviously you don't do that. Like I don't think he knew that. I think it was just an accident. So. Yeah, I mean that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so I ended up making a block where I get to keep my best creatures, my tracker, my lieutenant, and I'm chumping one, which maybe I just let that one go through. I'm not sure why I blocked that one, but
well, he's probably attacking the Tamiyo, right? So that's why.
Oh, you're right. He is attacking the Tamiyo. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I put enough on the other one to force action out of him.
It's interesting because you said that like not even you were realizing that he cannot play the Avacyn. Like, did you make the blocks assuming that he can play it, or do you remember?
I can't remember. I mean, I can't remember exactly my thought process behind these blocks. I do know that me looking back on this match now versus me playing the match, that I was definitely like really on top of my game in this tournament. So I think that I generally played pretty well. I mean, I think I shouldn't have attacked for that tracker that last turn, but I think I generally played pretty well, I felt. So I trust my decision making at the time more than what I think I would do now decision making, for sure.
That's a little bit sad to hear, but it's just hard to be on the top of your game all the time, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I'm far enough removed from these decks in this tournament that if you were like, all right, play Bant Humans now, it would be something I'd have to relearn how to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, like right now, you're just like kind of chilling and watching. You don't really want to necessarily think about everything, but obviously, when you're in the finals of Worlds, you're way more invested in making the right decision. So.
Yep.
So yeah, as we were saying, Marcio tries to play this Avacyn, and then judges are tell them that he can. Maybe I should like fast forward a little bit because they're gonna like talk about that. Okay. Yeah, so he cannot actually play the Avasin. So what he decides to do instead is that he's just gonna track glue. Yeah, that must have felt pretty bad because obviously he wouldn't make this, well, not necessarily, but he would probably not make this attack, right? Like he just like loses a tracker for like 2 reflector mages. That doesn't seem that great. I guess 3 reflector mages because you chummed with the third one as well. But still. Not only that, he also is kind of forced to like crack bunch of clues, but maybe he would have rather do like something different if he like didn't have to.
Yeah, it's forcing him to be like, you know.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't that bad for him, right?
I mean, he killed 2 of my reflector mages, and I killed 1 of his trackers.
No, he actually killed three reflector mages because he killed 2 of the ones that double block. Oh no, is that not the case? Oh no.
I think he only killed 1. Yeah, I think he
Wow.
just didn't pump his tracker enough to kill the other one.
Well, that okay, that didn't really work out well for him. Were you thinking that you're gonna win at this point because you know you have a Tamio on 2 and a bunch of creatures?
No. No, so for me here, I was playing 2 Tragic Arrogance. For like a large part of this game, I was thinking like I'm playing towards Tragic Arrogance. And
you already saw one in the company though, right?
What's that?
You already saw one of the Tragic Arrogances in one of the bun companies earlier, so like you know it's on the bottom of your deck. I guess you can shuffle here.
Right. So this allows me to put that Nissa was huge. Because that allows me to shuffle Tragic Arrogance and Chief Mocha's commands back into my deck.
Yeah, I can see that you like shuffle, really focusing on the shuffle here.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very happy to be able to have the opportunity to shuffle my deck there because I knew my best cards were on the bottom.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about the decision of playing the 2 Nissas in the sideboard? Was that maybe because post board the games are more grindier and you have like Tragic Arrogance, so the grind the nature of the card to like grind more suits it better for like the post board games, whereas game 1 you just like kind of wanna steamroll your opponent, or what was going on with that?
That's basically it. Kind of like what you had mentioned earlier about not really being able to aggro your opponent out that well in post board games. Mm-hmm. That's kind of true, and that's where like Nissa comes in to, be able to play that grindy game where the game becomes about Tragic Arrogance and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even though like Marcio's deck's slightly more better set up to play a grindier game, ultimately we're almost all the same cards anyway. So I might have a slightly worse build, but the cards are all so powerful that it's not like I'm even really like that much of a dog in that spot.
Yeah, you would like think that maybe Marcio having access to like Recruiter would make him like win these long games, but as you can see, like people have like infinite clues, so you don't even have enough mana to like spend to like do all these things, and maybe when that's the case, just like having the more powerful play of like Dahlia's Lieutenant might mean that you come out on top. As you're saying, the decks are very similar, so.
One thing I want to say is like somewhat unrelated is that my family watched this game and they don't know anything about Magic, and this is like one of the first games of Magic they ever watched, and they had no clue what was going on the entire time. And I want to say that as somebody who plays Magic and watching, there's a lot of people who also had no clue what was going on the entire time. It was just such a complicated game. I mean, we both have 10 lands in play, and we are using every mana every turn. Like,
that's awesome though. It kind of sucks sometimes that you have like a finals of approach, and someone just like, for example, when Siggy played against Yoel and he just mulliganed to 3, yep. It just kind of sucks. But this game was awesome.
Yeah, people hated this format because of company and because of this company deck in particular, but the games themselves were actually really good.
Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter how good the games are as long as there is like a deck that dominates everything. People are just always not gonna like it.
Yep.
So I guess you plus the Tamio and didn't attack, especially when you like know about the Avacyn, like you like literally know about it. You know, obviously, you don't attack there.
I can't make an attack until this Avacyn hits the board. At least not at this stage. Later in the game, if I am able to develop a more powerful board than Marcio, I would be able to make an attack there, and just be like willing to lose a creature or two to the Avacyn. But at this point in time, I'm just throwing away anything that comes into the red zone for no real value.
Mm-hmm. Was Avacyn a big deal in these mirrors because you weren't playing the card, right? Like it's not a human, you can hit it in a company, but you know Marcio played it even though you can't hit it with company, so I assume that it was really good. But I'm not sure.
Don't think it was that important. And maybe this is me misremembering, but I remember us talking about Avacyn and kind of coming to the conclusion that it actually wasn't that important of a card in these matchups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that he kept it in because you know he has access to like 2 or 3 tragic arrogances, and it's like another 5 mana card. It's like sometimes weak to like Dromoka's Command or Reflector Mage. So I'm just like a little bit surprised that you know he still has it post board, but I don't know. That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, we can talk about the sideboarding. This is like one of the key moments of the game.
Sure.
And then, yeah. So I don't know if you want to pause it.
Like, yeah, I'm just gonna pause it.
Yeah, I think that I don't know what Marcio's sideboard plan is, but we definitely think that he misboarded in some regards because he had Gideon at various points in post-board games. He had Gideon, Avacyn, Elder Deep Fiend, Tragic Arrogance, and still had Collected Companies in his deck. So at some point in time, like, I like, and some of those cards might have come in and out for different games for each other, so it's hard to know for sure. But
yeah,
it feels like that's too much top end to have all of that. And if you do want to go that route, then you probably have to cut Collected Company from your deck because you're not going to have enough hits anymore.
Yeah, maybe he just wanted to have some powerful cards to fight the Tragic Arrogance. But you know, I don't really know. So you said that this was like the key point of the game. Can you maybe talk us through?
So he's flashing in an Archangel Avacyn here, and I have, with the Indestructible trigger on the stack, this is my moment to be able to kill creatures of his. Because once they gain Indestructible, then I have to wait until his next turn. And if I wait until his next turn, he's going to have 9 mana untapped, access to Collected Company for Reflector Mage, access to Dromoka's commands, the ability to crack clues to find any of those pieces, and so forth. So
he can also have a window. He can also have a Spell Queller, right?
Right. Yeah. He can also have a Spell Queller too. So this is my window to attack, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I have 2 Dromoka's commands to his 1 Dromoka's command, and that gives me the opportunity to play a Dromoka's command that's going to blow him out, which is going to entice him to want to play a Dromoka's command to re-blow me out, and then I get to trump him with the 3rd Dromoka's command on the stack effectively. So,
do you maybe think that he potentially made a mistake because when you play the command here, especially when you played it like so fast, it kind of signifies that you have another copy, right? Like he kind of used the command earlier super aggressively, and you know the game is pretty long. Marcio is keeping up his mana all the time. So you clearly know that Marcio, or you probably think that Marcio has a command, so you wouldn't really play your own command into his command unless you have a second one. So do you like maybe think that he messed up and didn't play around the second one, or he just like had to, or what do you think about that?
So I kind of think that 2 things are true here. One is that if I don't try to deal with this Avacyn here, it's going to kill my planeswalkers in successive turns.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is that so I'm kind of priced into like I don't know what I would do, what I would have done if I only had one command. Like it's hard for me to know, but I certainly would have considered trying to do this play anyway, just because the value of the Avacyn is so huge, being able to kill my 2 planeswalkers. And similarly for him, he's kind of like priced into trying to protect his Avacyn, I think, because he's actually fallen behind now in the game, whereas like a couple turns ago he was ahead, but like losing his tracker to the Reflector Mage when he wasn't able to flash in the Avacyn, me hitting the Nissa to get another planeswalker in play, and so forth, has swung the game in my favor now. So he is kind of maybe forced into making the play too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. I guess even if you didn't have the second command, Marcio's command wouldn't like blow you maybe that bad because the creatures would like still trade. But I guess that would mean that the Avacyn would flip. What would happen if the Avacyn flips? So it would kill. Yeah, it would be pretty bad for you, I guess.
Yeah, the thing about the commands too, and like I don't remember exactly how I used it, but I was pretty sure that Marcio had command in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that I used Dromoka's command in such a way of like putting counters on things and choosing to fight certain things. Because you can put a counter on a different creature than the creature you choose to fight with.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the things that I end up doing here, I think, is like, I think Marcio tries to re-up my Dromoka's command with his. Yeah, so I'm choosing to put a counter on Reflector Mage and fight Archangel Avacyn. I think he is going to try to put a counter on something else and then use his Avacyn to fight my 3/4 Mage before it flips, which then lets me use my other Dromoka's command to just put the counter on the Mage, but use other creatures to fight.
Oh, and then you
that
completely...
way my Mage becomes a 4/5, and his Dromoka's command still is going to resolve, and I'm letting his Dromoka's command fight his weak creature into my big creature.
Yeah, that's actually insane. He probably made a mistake with that, right? He just like should have put a counter on the Avacyn as well, because then at least he has like one extra creature. Because this way
Right.
you were actually able to kill additional creature, right? Because the Avacyn just killed itself.
Yep. If I'm remembering correct, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't even know.
I guess we will find out soon enough.
We'll find out, yeah.
By the way, really appreciate that you took your time today. You obviously could have easily said no. You know, Brian isn't getting paid for this, so you know, really happy that you gave me the opportunity. So thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, usually when one player like slow down significantly like this, it usually like, oh fuck, you know. I don't know if you're like that when you're playing, but usually when I like think I'm ahead, or like I think something works out certain way, and then I like start realizing that I messed up pretty badly, then I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, then you're like, how do I get out of this?
Yeah, now you're like explaining to him, oh man, you're so screwed.
Yep.
And he's like, oh no. I think he was probably realizing that you have the second command, but I don't think he necessarily realized that you can do this.
Oh, I think what happened was he tried to fight my Thalia's lieutenant. That's what it was.
Okay, sure.
So he tried to fight lieutenant with Avacyn, and that's where I got to fight the tracker with the lieutenant that was going to die anyway.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So either way, you came out on top significantly.
Yep. This is an example of why this game is an example of why we didn't think Duskwatch Recruiter was very good in the mirror match,
Mm-hmm.
because Marcio's had a Recruiter in play the entire game, and he's not activated a single time.
Yeah, it's not really doing that much. I guess that's because he had the trackers, so it's just better to crack clues over it. So like maybe in games where you don't have a tracker, it might be useful. But as you're saying, it doesn't seem that good here. You should definitely probably trim at least some copies. It's also just bad in multiples, right?
Yeah, it's bad in multiples, and we have so many things to do with our mana, and there's so much card advantage that it's just rare that it ends up being that important. I mean, he is activating it now, but we're how late into the game at this point, and he has, I think, 2 more copies in hand that aren't doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, he found a Sulfur Spirit now. That would be pretty good last turn, but
Yeah.
it seems like the entire game went through, and we didn't see a spell queller so far. Like, do you maybe think he boarded him out? Because as you were saying before, he had some of the top end still in his deck, and he has like all these recruiters and stuff. Do you maybe think he boarded out spell queller? Isn't that crazy?
That was my assumption, was that he boarded out Spell Queller. I don't actually think that's crazy. I don't remember Spell Queller being that great in the mirror.
I see.
Hit my Duskwatch Recruiter there, which is actually really good here, so maybe I'm just a bit dumb for making that comment. But I'm pretty sure we only played 1 copy of the card.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you draw it, it's great, but if your opponent draws it, then
It's horrible, yeah.
yeah. Well, having the 1 copy makes sense, right? That's like the first copy is way better than any other one after that. It just has diminishing returns, so it makes sense, I suppose. So now you're just kind of going off. I'm not sure if there's like any point in still continue watching. Like I assume that you're just gonna use all these trackers and eventually grind him out, but.
If I remember correctly, even though it looks like, so Marcio is ahead the entire game until this point. Now I'm ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remember correctly, the game swings back and Marcio is ahead again. So I don't think that I just win from here.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that I get so far behind to where I kind of have to draw Tragic Arrogance to pull it back out.
Wow. I actually, when all the time when I'm making review, I always watch the game before. But as I was saying earlier, I got to a point where I just have no idea what's going on here. Like, there's just too much mess, and I kind of stopped watching. So I don't actually know exactly how this game is going to play out. Kind of sucks to admit that for the viewers, but here I am, I guess. Wow, you still like get to a point where you're like start losing this game. I'm really curious how that's gonna happen. I guess Marcio can draw his Tragic Arrogance at any point as well, right?
Yeah, it does not involve Tragic Arrogance, but also Marcio still has a Nissa, Recruiters, and 3 clues. He still has access to drawing a lot of cards.
These games are crazy. We were saying that they're interesting, but I think that sometimes it gets like too interesting, if you know what I mean. Like, it's nice when you like have to like edge out like this additional card or whatever, but like these games are just kind of, I don't know.
Imagine, I agree with you. Like the games were really like skill intensive, but they were incredibly grindy, and sometimes it's too much.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that like a FNM player, might not want to be involved in this. Also, like if the best deck is like so skill intensive in a mirror, that the best player is like gonna win significant amount of the games, that's also kind of bad for the community, right? Because people, either you just play a bad deck, or you're just like kind of bound to lose all these mirrors. Like, I'm not really sure that's where you want to be in the format.
Right. I don't think it was so skill intensive that the best player would always win. I do think that it was one of those things where one person could just steamroll the other person with Cocos and stuff like that. But in games where that didn't happen and they dragged on like this, then every little decision added up. So there were kind of two kinds of games, and like even in this finals here, we're tied 1-1 going into this third game. Both of the first two games were like lightning fast. Like, he steamrolled me in game 1, and I just steamrolled him in game 2. And then this was like the third game took like an hour or whatever. Like, so. But yeah, imagine coming in and watching the game from here, having not watched any of it before. It's like,
yeah, like, what is going on?
What the hell is going on? You know, like.
Did they just like randomly put their deck onto the table or something?
Yeah. And like, it's not even just that there's dice everywhere, there's clues everywhere. You also just have to remember triggers that aren't represented. Like, Tamio has targeted Sylvan Advocate and Selfless Spirit here, which aren't represented on the game state. That's just something that has to be remembered.
Also, like Reflector Mage triggers and Avacyn triggers. There's just like many things going on.
I remember how this game swings. It's right here.
I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to like maybe mess up some of the blocks, or like what's gonna happen here?
So, if I remember correctly, I think I actually made like really excellent blocks here, and to the point where Marcio's making an attack, and what I want to do is I want to make blocks such that my planeswalkers survive, such that I'm threatening to kill some of his creatures, because he has Selfless Spirit. So this is kind of an attack that he can't lose in some way, right? Because he has he can always sacrifice Selfless Spirit, and that would allow him to give his creatures indestructible. So he's not going to lose any creatures if he sacrifices the Selfless Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to force him into doing that without losing too many of my own creatures and with protecting both my planeswalkers. And I don't remember exactly which creatures attacked which planeswalker, but I'm pretty sure by making these blocks, I'm threatening to kill 3 of his creatures. And so he has the option of letting his creatures die or letting his Selfless Spirit connect.
It's kind of weird that he made this attack. Like from like, maybe I'm missing something, but from what it seems like, he's just gonna lose his Selfless Spirit for no reason.
Yeah. The thing that makes this such a turning point in the game is I felt like after he makes his attack, I'm feeling really good. Like, this is, if I can get the Selfless Spirit off the board, maybe get some other creatures off the board, either way, like, it's not that bad for me. But it definitely changes here in a second. I'm not going to spoil.
Also, you said that the Tamio targeted the Selfless Spirit, right?
It did, yeah.
That's like another argument against the attack that he did. Like, I don't really understand. I don't know.
Yeah, so he cracks the clue there and draws Dromoka's Command, and that changes everything.
But you said that Marcio is gonna get to a point where he like starts winning again. Like, at this point, doesn't really seem that way. Is it because of the Dromoka's Command?
It is. The Dromoka's Command, so he's going to be able to sacrifice Selfless Spirit to give his creatures indestructible. And then that is what makes Dromoka's Command such a beating, because now the +1/+1 counter, like, the first strike of Knight of the White Orchid is kind of invalidated by the counter now. Or by the indestructibility. So he gets to use the ability to fight and the counter both effectively here.
It just seems kind of crazy because like he made this attack you made like pretty good blocks, but obviously it's like fine of worlds. Like I would give you like credit to like block well. He kind of realizes that the attack wasn't really that good for him, and he like, oh, I like need to crack this clue, and then he draws Dromoka's command that actually makes the attack like really good, but like he obviously didn't know he's gonna draw it. It just, I don't know, it just seems kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it was I think that was a mistake, but then drawing the command made it actually like really good for him.
Yeah, maybe he like should have cracked the clue before attacking, and then with the command like it would play out the same way as it did. But obviously the way it happened is kind of strange.
And then I activate Recruiter and put three great cards on the bottom.
The usual.
Yeah, I thought
usual.
like to the credit of Marcio there, it's actually generally often better to represent a diversity of cards. So him not cracking the clue there before the attack represents Collected Company, which could hit a number of cards, including Reflector Mage, to disincentivize me to double block. So holding open 4 mana actually has a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that attack without the Dromoka's command wasn't a good attack, that's still the case. So,
do you have the Tragic Arrogance here already, or do you have to?
So I don't have Arrogance. I have. So that puts me like I'm actually kind of in a bad spot. And now this is actually a situation where I plus the Nissa when I have a tracker in my hand.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that because you I think you have both tracker and maybe even company in your hand. So I was like thinking why you didn't play those first before activating, but maybe you just like need the mana for something else.
Well, the reason is that if I hit Tragic Arrogance, I want the least number of things in play.
I see.
And at this point, I'm playing towards Tragic Arrogance. I think that's like my primary way to come back. Because like, I mean, last turn I was crushing, and now look, like he has 6 creatures to my 1, like two clues to my 0, like it's crazy how quickly that turned around. So I'm trying to hit a Tragic Arrogance because that will massively swing the game. And I think with how few cards I have left in my deck, I'm actually not that far off from being able to find it. So
because you have second Tamiyo, you just use the tap so that you can draw a card with a second copy, or I'm starting to lose track here. Oh, yeah.
So I tapped 2 creatures, and then this is going to, if I'm not mistaken, I'm playing a second Tamiyo here, and I wanted to be able to attack. I think if I'm like maybe I didn't have. I don't remember exactly. I think there was a. I wanted maybe I have a second lieutenant. Did I have a second Thales lieutenant? Because that would make this play make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. You have a command.
Oh, Dromoka's command.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I wanted to be able to kill the Nissa, and I think I play a second Tamiyo here that allows me to plus to even get to draw a card here from this attack.
It's kind of weird though because I agree that at the beginning of the turn it like obviously Marcio had like insane board and you had like nothing, so it would make sense that you just want to go for the Tragic Arrogance. But I don't actually like think that after the dust settles here you're like losing by that much, so maybe just having the tracker in play would have ended up being better, because if you draw the Arrogance you're like probably winning anyway. But that's just my thoughts. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that it's certainly possible that that's correct. Like I'm not sure. I know that was my thought process for why I did that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is possible that I was like looking at the board. It looks like I'm really far behind, but now seeing how this turn played out, maybe I wasn't that far behind actually. And you're right. Maybe I should have just gotten more value out of my cards.
Yeah, definitely at the beginning of the turn, I was. It's probably the same as you. I was like, oh, yeah, you just like needs to find Arrogance, otherwise you're just gonna lose. But after we see how the turn actually played out, it's like actually not that bad for you, especially with those 2 creatures not untapping. So the swings are just crazy, man. Like every single turn, like I just think that the other player has no chance, and then the other player uses his like super broken cards to just like swing it right back.
I mean, we have how many lands in play? I don't know, 12, 13 or something. We're using all of our mana every turn. So when you think about it, it kind of makes... And we're using all of our mana every turn to play cards that cost 2 and 3 mana. So when you think about it, like, it makes sense that the game would just swing wildly from turn to turn. Because we all have so many resources. We all don't have the time to deploy them all. So when it's, like, finally our turn to have access to do it all, it's like, okay, now I get to, like, swing everything my way.
Now it's my turn, man. It's weird that the game was so long and neither player has drawn a Tragic Arrogance so far.
Yeah, I don't know if Marcio had them in his deck for this game or not.
Yeah, maybe he didn't.
Conventional wisdom at the time was that you had Arrogance on the draw and you did not have it on the play. So Marcio was on the play this game. So... it's conceivable that he
doesn't have them, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't have it.
He even drew Noose Constrictor here. That's a weird card. It's like the 2 reach guy, and if you discard a card, it gets like a +1/+1 counter or something like that, right? Or maybe until end of turn.
Yep. No, yeah, the counter goes on to the Noose Constrictor. You're right. Yeah, I'm not. That one I don't understand.
Being in the deck.
So now he's got a million things in play, and once again, like an Arrogance would be so good for me.
It's not there. Come on.
But like you said, once again, that's a spot where maybe having the tracker in play before doing any of that would still be better.
Yeah.
I could choose the tracker as my creature to keep.
Are you actually sure you have a tracker in your hand?
I think I do. The graphic is telling me that I did.
I mean, I don't think I saw it in your hand, and you also like did all of this like super fast. That like I think that if you had it, maybe you would like at least think about it a little bit longer. But I don't know.
Yeah.
You're shuffling the cards too fast to spot that.
This was a bad attack for me, I think, because I'm pretty sure that I actually just forgot about Thalia.
Ooh. You just didn't realize that the creatures are gonna come into play tap?
Yeah, like I'm gonna play a creature here. I'm gonna put it in play untapped. Marcio's gonna remind me that comes in play tapped.
Wow.
And then I'm gonna be like, oh shit.
No. Oh shit. I mean, it's a very long game. It's hard to not forget at least something during the game, right? So you did have the tracker. So yeah, like maybe it was a mistake before, but
now I did remember to play a basic land, so that would come into play untapped.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Was that arrogance? Not yet, I guess.
I think it was.
Oh, it was nice.
I don't think it was.
Oh, you don't think it was? Okay.
It was something else.
Oh, there it is.
There's an arrogance. So hitting that reflector mage is pretty good, I think, because I was actually a little nervous that I might just get steamrolled here. But that allows me to bounce the Thalia and then play a creature
that's untapped, yeah. How good was the Lambolt Pacifist? Does the 2-mana free that can flip into a 4/4?
It's pretty good. Yeah, it was. I thought it was better than Duskwatch Recruiter as a 2-drop. Generally speaking, it was pretty easy to get to a 4-power creature to allow it to attack, and it would put a lot of pressure on.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to talk about like certain spots or whatever, but I'm just kind of getting lost here. I don't really know. Like both players have like access to like 15 mana every turn, and they're just like clues lying around. Like I don't know. It just kind of
Yeah,
seems meaningless for me to like talk about the fact that maybe he should have like cracked the clue before like playing a 2/2. You know, it's just like there are just like so many things to think about that.
and that's one of the things where like perfect execution in games like this, perfect execution makes such a huge difference. And like us reviewing through this game, and like, you know, we might not be correct now or whatever, but it's like we're seeing spots where both players are making mistakes. It's like,
Yeah.
and this is the finals of the World Championship where both of these players, you know, both of us got here by beating other people in these matchups. So, and we're still making tons of mistakes in these games. Like, it's just very, very difficult games.
Selfless praise, so that's huge.
That's big. And Reflector Mage number 8. I mean, I don't even know at this point. Is that the
I think
8
so,
and 8
yeah.
Reflector Mage that's
I
been
think so.
played? I think so. I mean,
Doesn't really happen very often that, you know, both players play 4 Reflected Mages. So the Nose Constrictor is a weird card, but I guess that if you have like access to infinite cards and all these clues, it might be like kind of a scary card because you're forced to chump it a lot of the time. I don't know. It's a weird card.
like I think I have 7 cards in my hand. I mean, I don't remember what. I think I just let my Planeswalkers die here.
I think Marcio is attacking in a way where you don't really have any good options here about the Planeswalkers.
Right, I'm gonna lose my Planeswalkers regardless of how I block. I think I had the option of choosing to trade my Recruiter if I wanted to. Yeah, just chose not to. But I think I did get to draw a card. Yeah.
It's unfortunately you put one of the arrogances on the bottom of your library, so you're actually like not that likely to hit it here. Still.
Yep. Because I had just, to some extent, although if I was tracking my library size with Duskwatch Recruiter, there's a chance I could actually just know I would draw myself to it.
But I guess you.
I wasn't doing that. But I mean, on top of everything else going on in this game,
Oh, nice.
It would be a little much, I think, to track all that. But
you could just like maybe write it down how many times you used it or something. But
yeah.
Regardless, you drew it here, so you know I assume that's gonna be pretty good.
I'm trying to remember how I I don't even remember how I ended up actually playing this Arrogance. Like, I maybe didn't even cast it. Yeah, well, it's looking like I did. Yeah, okay, I did.
Why did you not attack first? I guess it doesn't really matter because, like, I don't know. He would probably not really block with those creatures, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's basically GG here, right? You just have too many resources compared to Marcio, so.
I just get to let him keep nothing, and I keep a tracker.
Yeah, I think we can stop watching here.
Yeah. From here, it's game.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of tired after this game, man.
Need to take a nap after that one. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I think that if I told you before I messaged you that we're gonna talk specifically about this game, you would refuse. So that's why I didn't. But I'm happy that we were able to do that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of made that assumption. Like, the other games, Game 4 was, like, somewhat interesting, I guess, but the first 2 games were just not interesting games, really. It was one person crushing the other, so This was definitely the interesting game of the finals for sure.
So despite you knowing what you were signing up for, you agreed to it. That's respectable.
I don't know what that makes me like.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyways, if you guys like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button, and I see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks, Brian.
Bro.